How was that for a shot, guys? It was compelling, huh? Had to clean the filthy windshield. I can't see. Morning, best friend.
Morning.
So, yesterday was day run. I
Possibly day run too.
day run.
Ooh, I definitely got a sunburn.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. I can put stuff in that if you want. All right, I always volunteer. You know, I'm just here to help out the community. Like, I'm just trying to help. It's not a vulgar excuse to see you topless. No, it is. So we had grazing school yesterday, and that went well. Holy smoke, there was a lot of information. You were a little overwhelmed by the amount of information?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Like, for you guys at home, and I've explained this to people that, you know, kind of explain the concept behind it, they go, oh, okay, so you move animals when it's time to move animals. But there's so much more to it than that.
And no.
You know? And it's also nice to be around people who have a completely different understanding of what it is that you're doing than you do.
Yeah.
In other words, we were around a lot of people who actually have farms and have experience.
Yeah, it was a good mix of people because there was a lot of other people like us who don't have property, who are looking to get property in the next 2 to 3 years, who are wanting to get back to the land, who want to have a homestead so they can raise their children or help raise their grandchildren in a way that is sustainable and helps the environment and make sure that they're feeding them good, healthy food. So that it was cool to be around.
And there was a lot of those people.
A lot of those people, and then there's a lot of people who have been farming for generations and want to do better. And then there's a few people that are doing regenerative agriculture, but it's not working the way they wanted it to or the way they thought it would, and they're trying to figure out what they're doing wrong. So like a really good mix of people.
It really is.
Which is kind of cool because there's a lot of different kinds of questions being asked. Some of them are very specific, based on those people's experiences and failures and all that stuff. And then there's some more kind of general questions being asked, but they're so awesome about stopping in the middle of a lecture and like answering 10 minutes of questions, going back into the lecture. It's a really, really cool experience.
Oh yeah. I also thought, I wasn't too sure where we would fall in the whole setup because we don't own anything and yet we're obsessed about it. And we fall exactly where I guess we're supposed to, which is we have a lot of knowledge, we don't have a lot of access, but there are also people who have access and either admittedly have no idea what they're doing or they've tried it and they're like, okay, I know I'm not doing this right. Mm-hmm. And that's the other part of this whole thing is that the system we are learning is not complicated necessarily.
But it's so complicated.
It's so complicated.
And it's very basic ideas.
It's very basic.
But it's very specific to every person's situation and location and animals and land, and like the concepts work no matter what, but you have to take the ideas and really learn your land and understand what is going on. To like the degree of, you know, knowing all the plants on your land and knowing what are indicator plants for different issues in your soil and knowing what animals are going to eat, what they can eat, they won't enjoy eating, what might make them sick, what in certain circumstances, if they only eat a little, it's not going to be a big deal. And it is so much more complicated than grazing. You know, rotationally graze, like just moving your animals.
Yeah, because he did, Greg Judy actually did rotational grazing before he did this method. And he'd have some success and a lot of failures. There are so many little variables that like, okay, what if we do this? That could work, or that could cost you tens of thousands of dollars.
Right.
And hard to explain what those things are.
Yeah.
I think of it this way. I think when you've got it up and running and it's proper, you can pay attention, like Alan Savory says, like look for what's going to go wrong. And I'm not awake.
No, you're not.
Alan Savory says that he looks for what's going to go wrong and then waits for any, like the one thing that could go wrong in this equation, and then when it starts to even remotely go out of whack, you correct it, which is not that complicated. But to get all these systems together and to have them work well is, I would think, like conducting an orchestra. You know, every little thing has to be right, and you have to know when to do it. And there is room for error. You know, you can have jazz one day and you can have blues the next. You know, as far as whatever music the orchestra is set on playing, but it has to work as a mutual agreeing of parts. And there are little things that if you just move your animals, it's not quite enough. Like, I'm not explaining this well at all.
Which is okay.
Yeah, it's complicated.
It's complicated. Yeah, I mean, there's so many nuances, and it's one of the cool things about this is understanding a little bit more of what nuances you're looking for, like what issues you might potentially run into, what to be on the lookout for, what he totally shares issues that he's had on his own farm. And then Greg Brann, who's the other speaker at this grazing school, also sharing his experience, and they don't run their farms the same way. And it's really cool to hear different perspectives and different ideas, and he shares what he tried because he read about it or heard it in a lecture, or one of his friends or colleagues does it and he wanted to see how it worked on his farm, and he tries it for a couple years, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, and it sets it back financially, or the herd, or so it's really cool to see. Like, it's never going to be simple.
No.
It will always be, which I think is really cool because it's not a set it and forget it. It's
exactly.
Like you're always learning something new. You're always working to improve the genetics of your animals to fit the environment that you're in. You're always trying to improve your pasture. You're always trying to see how you can tweak the system to make it more efficient and better, and maybe less labor intensive. But sometimes it's going to be more labor intensive. You talked about, camping out for an entire day with a herd and moving them every 15 minutes because there was a particular field that he wanted to see what that would do, or I can't remember if it was, or that's the only way to do it because he had to get rid of whatever.
Yeah, he was hammering down. It wasn't a cocklebur or some other plant.
Something that he didn't want. So it needed to all get trampled and eaten and disturbed.
Oh, you know what else it was too? They wanted to see, like, if you gave the cows fresh grass, would they go and sit down and ruminate,
yeah.
Or would they keep eating? And the answer is they'll keep eating. Like, they'll eat and eat and eat.
So, like,
and eat.
it's very cool to have access to that experience and that freely given sharing of mishaps, things that didn't work out right. He started doing this in the 90s. He didn't know what he was doing, and he's learned from other people, and he's put together his own system, and he's come up with kind of the things that he typically does, but he's always learning and trying more new, different things to see if that makes it better. And it's been really
very cool.
I'm very much looking forward to the rest of today.
Yeah, it's interesting because, and I'll just say this real quick, when we're doing the Salatin semester as well, we jam information into our melons as much as we can, and in the Salatin systems, they're a little bit more dependent on technology and integration of other animals, whereas Judy is doing something that is mostly just cattle, and then working with local species to help the cattle be healthy. in the salad and setup, you can change just a small thing like having the chicken feeders not have a straight wall on the sides of them, and that can save you, depending on how many chickens you have, like more than $5,000 in a year, just that little change. With what Greg Judy is doing, because it's all animal based, you're really paying attention to the animal more than you're paying attention to like the technology. So just because you can put 80 cows in this space today doesn't mean that that's 1 day's worth of food, or it might be 2 days worth of food. We don't know. And he's looking at the animals, so if the animal starts to perform poorly, he can correct it.
And he understands, even like if he feeds them, if he moves them 3 hours late, he can tell by the way that they look. And that is kind of incredible.
But once you understand what you're looking at, that's the key, is that it's more spending time watching the animal, like understanding, okay, see that animal? You see how that triangle's not quite as full? It's full, but it's flush, it's not packed. That you didn't give them enough forage right now. They're working harder than they should. And it's like, yesterday we stared at cows for like 2 or 3 hours, and I'm like, I get that. Okay, that looks right. It's like, it's fascinating because there is that element of reading the animal that makes its way into the process. Whereas, when you're working with like 100 chickens, unless you're losing a chicken, you're weighing them once a week, and you're like, you're about right. That's close. Off by a half a pound on a chicken's forgivable, but that measurement when it comes to a cow is drastic. The other thing, and I feel like I need to say this, is that Missouri, right when you get into this area, becomes really pretty. Yeah. It's very pretty. If you guys wanted to know what this looks like, I would say, imagine what the Hobbit's environment looked like in Lord of the Rings, the Shire. This is very much like the Shire. There's just rolling hills forever. There's silvopasture forever. There's, little streams and rivers all over the place. And these little, they're almost like a neat little secret. Like, you drive into this area and you're like, oh, it's something beautiful. It's a little, water element and tree element. And then over the next hill, it's the same thing. Yeah, so
very interesting. It's too bad there's so many cornfields.
I know it. I feel like if I lived here, I would make a hobbit house. I definitely would. Because you could make a cob house on the side of a hill here, and it would work out really well, I think. It's pretty. I think it's pretty. It's tough to tell what the sky looks like, because I think what we've been seeing over the last few days is a lot of the cloud.
Oh, the haze.
The haze from the fires.
Fires, yeah.
So, but it's real pretty. I'm going to try to get some photos of it today. But yeah, here we go. Day 2 of rotational grazing school. Oh, look at all the deer.
Oh, there's a car behind you.
So we're eating lunch right now, and the potato salad has bacon in it.
It's delicious.
Oh my God, why have I never made potato salad with bacon in it?
Because you're failing at that.
I'm failing at life. You can keep 100% of the communists away if you just put bacon in your potato salad.
Yeah.
I think.
I wish it was a bud box and not a... I think bud boxes are by far superior. How many of y'all have heard of bud box? There's a ton of videos of people working animals, moving them through a bud box. And you can build a bud box for about 1/4 of the cost of that crowd right there. And then you got to core that dude. Coring means you got to go down another 6 feet. The width of the dozer blade. So there's like a 10 to 12 foot ditch in there. Once he gets that ditch dug, then he comes up here and gets his clay. And he gets his depth. Dirt stacked on this side, dirt stacked on that side. And a great big old V down in there. I run my line out in the pond by the fiberglass post and use polyethylene rope. Tie it to a fiberglass rod, and my hole's already...
Okay. He looked like a fighter.
I didn't even. I've been watching.
You got those trees in there. Some of those fish can get in those trees, and the otters have a hard time catching them.
How are you fastening them down?
Those are fastened to steel posts. Steel posts and polyethylene rope. Don't use wire. The wire will rust. Ground. And then it started raining. And he started losing all the soil. Now he's up there brush hogging foxtail. A good, healthy stand of foxtail. Dead soil.